Nerd Hatters, I am here with Evan Matthews, the director of the feature film Motherland, which played this past week at the RiverRun International Film Festival and is currently playing virtually at riverrunfilm.com. Evan, thank you for taking a few minutes out of your busy schedule to sit down with us at the Nerd Hat podcast.
I'm really happy to be here with you. Excited.
So tell us a little bit about Motherland. What's it about from a filmmaker's perspective?
Yeah, it's a drama thriller, and it takes place in this alternate present reality where Motherland has this society where parents are forbidden to know or raise their own children. And our main character, Cora, makes this discovery that changes her worldview and her how she works within the system and wants to pretty much find a way to circumvent it with her elite access to everything. So it's kind of a wild ride with some twists and turns. It's deeply heartfelt drama, and it's very light dystopian sci-fi world. So yeah, it's been a great immersive experience for people so far with this theatrical run, and I think that's, if you get a chance to see it in theaters, that's a great way to go about it before it goes to like streaming platforms or whatever. Whatever the future holds for it.
Yeah, hopefully you guys, I know that's the hope for most independent filmmakers, that your film continues to be seen, whether that's a limited release or wider release or eventually streaming. So I know I'm sure that's a hope you have for Motherland.
Yeah, and one of those things when it comes to distribution, we have a bunch of different conversations we're having with distributors. So those are very active, and we're very excited about the opportunities there. But we're really focused on the film festival run because we really want to have the theater experience for people, have a grassroots campaign, see how it does on the festival circuit. And so far, the movie's been really, really well received by audiences. We're getting just fantastic feedback. It's really been blowing our minds. Mine especially, because you're so close to the movie and the making of it and the process that you don't really know what it is anymore. So it's incredibly refreshing and rewarding to experience the movie all over again through the eyes of the viewers and the audience. And they get to add their creativity to the film and then reflect that back to the filmmaker. It's a really fun experience. It's kind of addictive too, because you get to share in that experience. Yeah, you get that feedback after all this time. You're finally getting feedback, and it's very direct and personal with these individuals, especially after the Q&As after the film. It's something that you really want to take for as long as possible and have that word of mouth spread about the film. And then, when it gets into those markets later, you can kind of revisit these moments in these different wonderful cities across the United States and see how the life of the film continues afterwards.
So how did you come to be attached to the project? Were you involved from its origins? Did you come along later in the process? I noticed that it was written by Nicole Swinford, who's also a producer on the film. Did she recruit you? Were you guys already in a relationship? Like, how did that come about?
So I already knew Nicole. We were acquaintances. We both were going through the Moving Picture Institute filmmaker program. So they, much like Sundance has their labs, the Moving Picture Institute has theirs as well. So it's a talent incubator. So Nicole submitted her feature-length screenplay to their screenwriting workshop, and I had been participating in their directing, cinematography, and their other workshops as well. So I had known the producers at MPI for a number of years, and it was a matter of just staying in front of them and being a high performer in their programs, and just a big fan of theirs. We became good friends. Like Lana Link, one of the producers, she's a friend. Nicole's a friend. The president, Rob Falsgraf, we became friends after this whole experience. Same thing with Nick Reed, who is the executive producer as well. I'd known them for a while, and I met with Lana Link after one of their social networking events, and we had a catch up, and I was telling, for some reason, it was an atypical Hollywood meeting. It wasn't very surface level at all. We actually had a very deep bonding connection in this lunch meeting we had, and we were sharing about parenthood and not knowing our fathers and what that's like, and sharing our perspectives. And then I was taking her on the journey of a lot of the personal things I had gone through in my own life from childhood up until recently. And it was a really fantastic moment. And then the next day she called me. She's like, I can't believe it didn't occur to me at the time. We had such an impactful meeting, and so many parts of your life story are just like this movie, the script Motherland that we just greenlit. We've already heard pitches from all these directors. You're kind of this 11th hour ad. If you like the script, would you be willing to pitch it? I said, yeah, absolutely. Send it on over. So we had that lunch on a Monday, got the script on a Tuesday night. Wednesday morning, I reread it again, make my notes, tell Lana, yeah, I really connect with the material here. I'd love to pitch it. She said, great, can you pitch it on Friday? And I said, okay. So I was just prepping, building out a pitch deck, pitched this Zoom meeting with Lana and Nicole and Rob. And I just pitched the daylights out of this thing. It was like 20% like pitch deck and my vision and everything I would want to do as a director and some scenes and other ideas I could tack onto the film. And then 80% of that pitch was like who you're getting, like who is Evan Matthews, the director? What have I been through? Why am I the perfect emotional shepherd to tell this story with all of the emotional touchstones throughout the film? And, I just emptied the tank, and you have to kind of bring this YouTube energy to a Zoom pitch because you have to transfer that through the screen. And that can be tough to do at times. So anyway, that went really well. And they said, one of the producers couldn't be here. Can you pitch it again on Monday? And I was like, oh, wow. So I pitched it again to everybody on Monday. It was a cleaner pitch because it wasn't as adrenalized and emotional. It was cleaner, still had good energy. They said, okay, great. We ended that pitch. I got a text from Lana. Hey, we have 3 more questions. Maybe you can clarify for us. Can you hop on another Zoom? I say, yeah, hop on. It was something about production design. I said, oh yeah, sure. We can do that. Because things are going to change anyway. So you have to just be flexible. They have ideas. I have ideas. We're going to find the best ideas and those are going to win. I had to clarify something about some story points I wanted to bring into the script as well. So we clarified that. And then the third question they asked if I want to direct the movie. So I was like on the verge of tears and smiling ear to ear and said, thank you. Yes, of course. And I got to bring that little victory down to my family who were waiting downstairs anxiously to know how it went. And that's how everything can change in 1 week. It went from making short films, trying to set up a project, and people drop out and fall out and money falls out and all these things happen. And all of a sudden, in a flash, you're directing your first feature film. Then 2 weeks later, you're flying off to upstate New York to start prepping for your first feature film.
That's got to be, I mean, I can only imagine. I've never experienced it myself, obviously, but I can only imagine how exciting that would be.
It's just like, it was like a life-changing moment. It's just one of those moments you just don't forget. And it's just seared into your memory and it just impacts you so emotionally. And also being incredibly ready for the moment, like ready, just secure in who I am as a filmmaker and as a father and a husband and what I've been through in life, and just having the discipline and routine that it's always been lacking in my personal life to be able to shoulder the responsibility of a big movie. You're gonna have to go off and shoot. I mean, big is a relative term, but it's it's a tier 0 independent film, but still it's a lot of responsibility. You can see the cast in the movie are heavyweight cast, and we have a lot of fresh faces as well, so it's going to test my range as a director and being prepared for that as much as possible, but also being able to handle the budget, working with all the department heads, working on location out in the woods in the middle of nowhere, and being able to provide like over 100 jobs for crew members who've been out of work for the last several months because of the writer's strike and the actor's strike. So there's a lot of weight that all the bricks you start putting in your bag. As soon as you say yes, you're like, oh, wow, this is getting heavy and real. But hey, that's that's the life. That's what you signed up for. And then you love the challenges. You're very present and you're absorbing all of these moments, and you're the most alive you could possibly be because there's no escape. You can only be right here now with whatever fire you have to put out.
How long was the film shoot for y'all? How many days did you get?
It was the month of November. In the end, it was 18 days. It took the whole month because we had Thanksgiving in the middle, and that was a particular challenge because when you have to take like a going completely dark hiatus, that means you can't even have a PA in the production office trying to keep something up and running or to answer a question or a phone call. Everyone has to be gone off the books. You're shooting for like 2 weeks straight, and you have all the anxiety, the momentum, the energy, just everything that comes with that all of a sudden has to stop for 5 days. And then you fly everyone back to upstate New York, or everyone who's in New York City has to traffic themselves back up to the Hudson Valley to get the machine up and running all over again to shoot for a whole other week. So that was tough to do because I personally could not detach. I was still to keep the entire movie tracking in your brain, you have to keep it there. You can't really let go. And I'm sure and your audience knows that movies are not shot in chronological order. It's not in script order. It's shot all over the place. So you have to keep track of all the necessary scenes you need to tell the story and the character arcs for every single one of your characters and how their performance are building up over time and how that's been tracking through every single day of filming. So you might be shooting the ending first, which is something that did happen on like day 2 and 3. And then you're shooting the beginning scenes, and all of Tony's scenes were shot in the first 2 days in her office. So you're trying to track all the different story points and story arcs in each movie. So it's a lot to keep in your brain and track all the time. And then you're taking a break and you can't let that go. And you got to stay sharp and you got to bring that back to set on Monday because there's really no one else to look at. Everyone's looking at the director for the answer. So I can't say, I don't know. I got to know, I got to know the answers to everything. And that's fine. The buck stops with me. So
what was it about going back a little bit to the script and when you had to make it somewhat quick? I mean, you knew the writer personally, obviously, and you knew a little bit about the story, but had to make a somewhat quick decision on the script itself when you got to read it. What was it about the script that drew you in? You're like, yes, I would love to direct this if they let me.
A few things. Yeah. I loved that. I love the world. The short films I had made prior to this feature were all world building movies. I've always loved sci-fi. I love the movies where you're going to pay to go to the theater because you want to have an escapist experience. So for me, I was really attracted to the world building. I loved the arc of the main character, and I could see that he had even greater potential. So I'm like, oh, we can do this. We can do that. We can do that. This is the great part of bringing a bunch of creative minds together. It's like, if there's any gaps or something you may have missed, you have these other creatives coming in. It's like, oh, how can we dial this up? How can we dial everything up to 11, right? So this is another opportunity to like put our heads together and make it better. Because I'm very much of the school of thought of the best idea wins. It's not so much about me and getting all the credit and just my vision. It's like, no, I'm the ultimate curator of everything from all the departments. We present everything, we present all the ideas, and then I'm curating everything and bringing my ideas to the table as well. And then I really, and then the character work and Cora, and I love the action that she takes as a mother and everything I've been through with my family, with my wife, with me not knowing my father and not meeting him until later. So I knew what it was like to feel these things. And I could see on the page, I'm like, how can we absolutely realize this with our cast? And now I'm coming from a place of actual experience, having experienced these things, having had years of infertility with my wife, having several miscarriages, having all of these different tragedies happen in our life, and we can actually bring this, and then having the experience of childbirth and being in the room with my wife for 3 children now. It's like, okay, I'm bringing real practical experience to the table here. So that excited me as well. I knew I had the depth of knowledge and I would really lend myself to the script. And because I have all these personal experiences, then I have all these personal connections to the story. Now I'm emotionally and passionately invested in the script and in the story, and I will do whatever it takes to accomplish this film. Like whatever fire comes up, whatever setback we have, I will always soldier through and push on to get this movie made because it's so critically important to me. I know it's Nicole's script, but I take it on as my own. And that's just what it takes. If you don't have a strong why, if you don't have that personal connection to the material, when things get really hard, you're going to give in to that temptation of compromise. And you don't want to do that. You want the best parts of the movie and the best elements to shine through. And you're going to fight every single battle you possibly can for the movie to win. You're fighting for the soul of that film. Now, compromises they're going to happen, but you have to resist that urge. So all really sinking my hooks into the film in a deep, personal, emotional, connective way helps me shepherd it to the finish line and really get it. I'm a steward of the story and the script and the film and I take that very seriously. So, and that's what it takes, and that's why I hope I see is starting to finally shine through when you get it to audiences and you get that feedback. You're like, okay, my instincts were right here. My cast and their instincts were right on the money with the performances and readings that they gave. So it's a great assembly of all those things.
You mentioned you felt the most connection, which, I mean, makes sense. She's the protagonist, but it's not necessarily a given in a film. But for you, you felt the most connection to the character of Cora and her arc. What was I'm assuming you were involved in it, as most directors are. What was the casting process like for finding Cora, and how did you all land on Miriam Silverman?
Yeah, good question. Well, it's really, it's twofold. It's Miriam and Zinnia. Like I felt I saw a reflection of myself in in Cora and Zinnia. Zinnia is played by Emily Arancio. She's a part of the casting experience as well, because this is the first time she's ever appeared on film for anything. She hasn't even done a short film.
Wow.
So she came straight out of the USC theater school, and this was her first time doing anything. And I think that's the two-handed parts of casting. There's the breakdowns that go out into the world to the agents and managers for all of those smaller roles. And then for the role of Cora, that's a casting breakdown that goes out to directly to agents and managers for very specific talent levels that we're looking for, because we knew that we wanted some seasoned actors or actors of note for the role of Tony, Mateo, and Cora, because they all hold so many scenes together, especially the very dramatic beats. They have to be able to hold the floor with each other. So, for instance, when we reached out to Nestor and Holland, it was very important to them before they would sign on to the project who was playing Cora, because they don't want to outshine the lead of the film. So whoever the lead is has to be able to go toe to toe with the other top billed actors. So it was a tough hunt for Cora because it was during the actors strike, and you never know who's really willing to work within the interim agreement. Some people they want to sit this out and they don't want to cross the picket line. Other people definitely want to work during the interim agreement because this is a chance to show that independent film can have a massive impact, and we can try to thwart the studio system in some kind of way. Whatever is fueling anybody and why they want to work, great. So you kind of have to put feelers out there to see where people are. So you're making those offers, and some of the cast we went out to, because it went out to everyone pretty much at the same time, because it took a long time to actually get the interim agreement. So we're coming up very close to production. So we have a couple of weeks to cast the film after we got approved for the interim agreement. So the offers go out, and some of the lead actors, they were already pre-committed to another show for Netflix or HBO or whatever, and they didn't know if the strike was going to lift sometime soon, and they might have to leave the Motherland project, and then we're in a tough spot, and vice versa for them. So, and no one wants to throw off the film after we just employed all these people who've been starving for work all of these months. So it was a really delicate balance of finding who's available, who isn't traveling, who is freed up just enough to come in November and take that risk and make this movie with very little prep as well. As an actor, you're saying, okay, can I build a character? Can I get familiar enough with the script? How much time do I have to prepare for this role? Because they're going to put themselves on camera and it's going to be there forever. So that's a big decision for them to make. And then they have to find out, who is this director? Who is this guy? Who's Evan Matthews? Never heard of him before. So with each of the main cast, I had to have Zoom calls with them and meet them and pretty much pitch them the movie and pitch them myself, and very much how I pitched Alana and the producers of MPI. I had to do that in a different capacity for Nestor, Holland, and Miriam. And each of them would connect on a different level. For Nestor, it was the themes of the movie, and we hit it off because I love the themes of the movie, and so did he. Holland, that was an exploration of the character of Tony and why that was unique versus other characters she's played in her legendary 65-year career. And then Miriam, she is fresh off of her Tony Award win. Wow. And so, and she's a world-class acting teacher as well. So, I mean, she knows her stuff and she's super sharp. So I was prepared to work with her and was excited and just had to be honest with her where I'm at and what I've been through in my life, and take her on my life's journey and what me and my wife have been through and everything. So she got to know me as Evan, the character, and what I've been through. So we really connected, and she could say, okay, this is someone I can at least work with and trust on set. So then Miriam came on board. It was the weekend before filming, so it's such a tight window. She came on board Sunday night, and then Nestor and Holland signed their contracts Sunday night, which allowed them to finally have wardrobe fittings and fittings for the whole cast Monday and Tuesday. We had no time for rehearsals. We had no time for a table read. We went into filming Wednesday morning. And I think at least on Wednesday morning, we were the only film on the whole East Coast shooting a movie because of the strikes. Now, other projects probably popped in and out in between there. But at that moment, we were the only one in production. So we're like, wow, we made it. How awesome is this? We're a bunch of badasses over here. We're surviving the strike situation and making a movie. So that was the casting experience was a great one. And then with Emily, it's a fun fact. When that casting breakdown went out for the role of Zinnia, I think we got like 8,000 responses like in the first day. It was really intense. And that's a reflection of how many people are also out of work. And New York and theater actors being displaced by Hollywood, coming to New York in the theater scene, and just everyone else who's available. That's why I'm so thankful when you get hire a casting team and a casting director like Pat McCorkle and Becca to do all of those breakdowns and then send me their top choices. They originally sent me, I don't know, like 25, but I asked for like quadruple the amount, and then they sent me like 200 of the self-tape auditions. I was like, okay, great. I don't know if they were thrilled about that, but I really wanted to get a sense of what's everyone bringing performance-wise? Like, what's the 99% performance and what's that 1% special performance? Who's got that special, unique take? And after a long day, I remember I got the email, I did a random scroll, spin the globe, and I picked one and I clicked it and I watched it, and the performance was really, really good. And I'm like, wow, I'm delirious. Are they all going to be like this, or I get lucky? I don't know. And anyway, so the next day I get to the office and I just close the door. I'm going to watch all of these back to back to back to back. I get to the one that I watched the night before, and I said, this is still the best one. And it was Emily Arancio. But we didn't know who her parents were going to be. And that would dictate, the look and vibe of who Zinnia would be. And then the chips fell where they did. And then I got my favorite with Emily, and I have no regrets there because I think she was fantastic. And we've gotten great feedback on her as well as the other performances.
I have to agree. I think she did an excellent job. I don't know if USC is geared more towards, are they geared more towards film in general, like preparing actors for film? Because I know some acting schools might be more focused on the theater.
That's a good question. I wasn't in the theater school. I did participate with it my first semester when I was at USC getting my master's, because I got my master's in screenwriting and directing. So it's mostly theater based. But you're going to get your classes and your workshops like on camera work, film work, and for TV, because those are different animals. I shadowed a bunch of TV directors for 6 months, and the machine and the pace of television is completely different from film, and then film is completely different from theater. But at the end of the day, there's some basics that overlap with all of them. It's that everyone has to do their own work. Everyone has to prepare. A director prepares, an actor prepares. You have to take that responsibility. These are things we expect of each other. And then we bring it to the table. We put the work up and we collaborate. In the theater, there's all the rehearsals, and you get it out in one big go, and you get that immediate reaction from the audience, and that's one way of doing it. And independent film, we were in a situation where we had to have a long director's rehearsal before every shot is up. So you usually have a director's rehearsal. It's a couple of minutes, kind of reviewing the scene, the arc, what are we going for, where are we at in the movie, kind of getting oriented and doing some blocking. And then you have your blocking rehearsal that you show the entire crew, and then they know how we're going to set up the camera, how we're going to work with it, and the DP is going to dictate those instructions to her team, and so on and so forth. But for us, we would take sometimes 30-40 minutes to get through the director's rehearsal, because it's the first time we're getting a scene up, and this is the actual work. This is where the rubber meets the road, because we have to commit to this plan, and that's going to dictate the entire rest of the film and everything else we capture. So we had to get it right then and there, because as soon as you get that on camera and these major emotional beats and how we're going to play something and the decisions we're going to make and commit to, we have to carry it forward. And in TV, a lot of that's already set in stone ahead of time. Like, there's no real work directing. I mean, there is a brief director's rehearsal. There's not a lot of time for back and forth and Q&A with the cast or anything. It's like, no, you've made your decisions. You went through the casting process. What you showed the casting directors and the director in the room is what we're expecting to see on set, and come ready to work fast. And so those are the different animals you get there.
So I know you said you mentioned that you filmed on the East Coast. Oh, was that further down the East Coast? I was trying to gauge it from the look of the land, like around your main location there. And did you guys film exclusively on location, or was there any work inside of a soundstage at all?
We did have a little bit of work inside of a soundstage on one of the locations in upstate New York. So we shot along the Hudson River Valley. So we started off, our pre-production was in Newburgh, and then we moved up to an area called Esopus. It's the Marist Brothers Catholic Retreat Center. It was this 250-year-old monastery and special needs retreat center. So we shot a majority of the movie there. So everything that's Motherland, all of that's taking place in that location. All the exteriors are that location. The rooftop sequences were shot in Newburgh, and they have a soundstage inside of the building where the rooftop was, where we built a little soundstage to shoot all of the Genevieve scenes. All the news report scenes were all shot on that soundstage there. So we got to have a brief little moment indoors in that soundstage. Otherwise, it was all on location. And when you work in a really old facility like that, you have these giant stone thick walls in the middle of nowhere, and you kind of just have to roll with the punches that come with that and the limitations that are there as well.
I know we were talking about location shooting ADR. That's right. I asked if you guys had to do any ADR pickups on the backside, given the kind of the old building, brick walls, that kind of thing. And you had mentioned that you did have to do some ADR.
Sure. We actually had really great sound. Eric Branting, who was in charge of our production sound, he did a fantastic job capturing our audio. So we're very, very satisfied there. For as far as ADR goes, sometimes you just need lines of clarity, or sometimes you need to hit a story point home a little harder. You'll get that. Otherwise, it was very, very minimal, the ADR. I think sometimes for like the Genevieve character, who's our news reporter, who's like in the background, who's the voice of Motherland, we used her to kind of build out the world a little bit more and leaned on that, because there were some opportunities to fill some of that space, that visual space, with some storytelling that's just a part of the world to make it authentic and real. Otherwise,
as opposed to having a character do exposition, which doesn't always work.
Yeah, I'm very much against exposition, and sometimes it's a necessary evil. That people want that moment of clarity, or sometimes you're getting feedback in some early previews, like, oh, I don't really understand this or that. And if you get overlapping notes, you're like, okay, let's make sure this is perfectly clear for someone. Otherwise, I'm very anti-exposition, because I'm very much characters, action, dialogue is character. Make sure you're doing those things well, and you shouldn't need exposition. People should be able to watch the movie and understand the stakes and what's going on in the scenario. You'll be all right.
Do you have a favorite spoiler-free moment from the film? Just something that after you captured, or maybe while you were watching it happen in front of you with the actors, you're like, wow, this is special. I love this right here.
It's tough to say. It's hard to say because there's so many reveals in the movie. Like, you've seen the film, so you know there's some twists and turns and reveals that happen along the way. For me, there's certain moments that happen in the film that were improvised on set. There was so much of that because of the nature of having these long rehearsal processes while we're filming. And so we're rewriting dialogue, we're changing scenes around as we go. It's very much, you see like footage of Stanley Kubrick, like typing and changing the scenes every single day. Like, that was me throughout the day and at night after work, and bringing the rewrites to set for the actors. And then they have rewritten scenes as well. So we're all literally on the same page, agreeing with like, hey, we're writing the same thing. We get each other. We're making the same movie. And that's such an awesome feeling. And then the producers like Tony and Summers, like, hey, we have to cut these scenes because of time and because of the story. And I was like, I had the same idea too. So when you're vibing like that in physical production, like prep and physical production with the boots on the ground team, and you realize you're all making the same movie, it's really thrilling. So when you have a moment you want to kind of push the limits or improvise on a little bit, you have that ability because everyone's trusting each other and we can explore. So with Holland Taylor and her Tony character, there's a scene, I won't say too much about it because I don't want to spoil it for anything, but if you've seen the movie, anyone who's seen the movie knows that there's a shocking moment that happens in the film, in the third act, and that was improvised between me and her. And it was something that we were discussing with her and Miriam and Nestor in one of our night shoots. And we didn't get to cover the whole scene. We had a weather delay. It got super cold. We were shooting outside on a roof, and the set froze over and became unsafe because we had no safety line on the edge of the roof. So we had to shut down filming, and not all the actors were available to come back the next day. And then we lost the location. So we had to shoot all of Holland's coverage in different locations, peppered throughout the shoot. And you would never tell by looking at that scene, but the shocking moment was something I got Holland to just do on her last take on her last night of filming when she was going to be wrapped, and she went for it, and then it ended up in the movie. And that's one of the things I just personally enjoy so much. You hear those stories of these happy accidents and these things that happen, and that's one of them. And that's the level of preparedness you have as a director, as the actors, as the producers, that allow for something like that to happen.
And I will say, without spoiling anything as to the specifics, I thought that worked for her character. I thought that fit. So
yeah, it's one of the big talked about moments in the Q&As afterwards as well. So that's extra fun for me, because it's like, guess how that came to be.
Well, that is something that has always been attractive to me about the process of filmmaking, is the collaborative nature, and then just how that can generate so many interesting ideas, like even in the moment, as you said, like between collaborators, and obviously involves a lot of trust as well. But that has been something that's always appealed to me. Is that, I guess that kind of brings me to your career, and we talked just a little bit about this before we part ways. What was it that drew you to the filmmaking, and were you originally planning on being, like, I know you went to college for that, like, what was it that drew you to the behind the camera side of filmmaking, as it were?
I never thought it was something I would be able to do. I grew up in Connecticut, and I was like, oh, I'll never make it to California and be a filmmaker. I'll just love movies. I just grew up playing Star Wars with my brothers, and when it would snow, we're all tauntauns, and we're all trying to like fight with lightsabers and cut them open and survive like Han Solo. So it's me and my brothers just would play out movies we loved, and then luck would have it, we moved to the West Coast. We didn't know anybody, and I got into this undergrad program, and I figured I'm just going to see if they have a film program. They didn't have a film production program. They had a film theory and critical studies program. So I signed up for that. They had one production class where you could rent out the one camera they had at the school. So I would take that class over and over.
USC, you said?
No, this was UC Riverside. So
okay,
UC Riverside. This is before I would later go to USC. I would take the same class over and over again just so I could have the camera, so I could make short films. And then this is back when nonlinear editing systems were just starting to come out on computers. So I was like, okay, cool. Final Cut. What's that? Download it and play with it for the first time ever. And cut together these little movies with my friends. And then I'm trying to remember. Then I get an internship on the Sony lot. And then I go the assistant, the PA route, and the assistant route, and the executive assistant. Then I became a producer, and then I wasn't directing movies yet. I had to kind of hit the reset button a little bit. So I applied to USC, got in, and got to focus primarily just on filmmaking and on myself for the first time in 5 years after undergrad. Say, okay, I'm going to make all the short films I want to make, and then realize how incredibly important it is to understand screenwriting and be able to screenwrite as a director. If you can't do those things, if you can't tell the story on the page and be able to translate it to an entire crew on the page, you're going to have a hard time working with the actors and everybody else. So I realized, okay, there's a little bit of a major shift here. I'm going to go shift into the screenwriting aspect and then also continue with the directing. So that's why I have a dual emphasis with my master's at USC. Sorry, I don't know if that answers your question, but that's kind of how things got started for me.
No, I think it does. So looking here on IMDb, I see the first listed short. I imagine you made some before that, but the first listed one is Arlington Heights. How did that come about?
Arlington Heights is an interesting one because That was actually the first time I came in touch with MPI. I was looking for a grant to make the movie. So that was like in 2010, I believe, is when they were a brand new program. So they gave me, I think it was like a $5,000 grant to go make the movie. And I used all of that to make this little story that takes place in LA, where this mother who serves overseas as an escort for Afghan women to safely get to school so they can be educated. Meanwhile, her son is in inner city LA and is harassed by some inner city guys and ends up being killed by this like rival gang, but no one was protecting him on the way home from school. So it was a little 5-minute short, and it just showed, the injustice with like our systems here in Los Angeles and how our priorities are, adrift. And it was interesting because I avoided making it political in any way, and I was able to like service both sides of the aisle and stay neutral. And that was one of the best lessons I ever learned in filmmaking, that the real art is not having an agenda and just entertaining and taking a good story and telling it well. And then what happens is everyone, no matter what walk of life they're from, found themselves in the movie. I'm like, wow, this is like this is like a lost art of satisfying everybody. So after that experience, I made it kind of a goal of mine to make sure I'm never leaning any direction except neutral. And my primary goal and agenda is to entertain. Have a movie that's emotionally connective and entertaining. And if it teaches a little bit, that's great too. But we're storytellers. We want to bring people into the cave and give them a great dramatic experience, teach them a little bit about life, and have them leaving hopeful and feeling better about things. And that's what I took from Arlington Heights into my following short films and eventually Motherland.
Yeah, so obviously congratulations on getting your first feature, and I just want to thank you so much for coming on the Nerd Hat podcast, taking some time out of your busy film festival schedule to sit down with us.
No, thank you very much. I really appreciate being here. I love to share. If anyone wants to follow me on Instagram, I'm taking people along for the ride. I'm at Evan B. Matthews on Instagram. So I'm taking people on the festival circuit with me. I was taking people through all of pre-production and physical production and the life cycle of a film and what it's like to make your first feature. And also, I want to answer questions for folks and what it's like to whether go to film school or get an internship or all these other jobs, or career questions. And I've helped a lot of people, and I want to continue helping people. The VFX artists that have worked on my other short films, I've helped them get visas so they can stay in this country and keep working on American movies and keep those super talented people here. So I'm just trying to be an asset and pay things forward. I'm just happy to keep doing it. So I really appreciate a platform like yours to connect with you and your audience. Anyone who wants to go see awesome movies like Motherland.
Yeah, and speaking of which, listeners, if you want to check it out, this is released. Well, actually, I don't know when this released. Now that I'm thinking about it, maybe I'll leave that part out. Yeah, the initial part is what will be on tomorrow's episode, but we already talked about where to find it, obviously there. So the RiverRun Film. But anyway, let's see. Do you have any final words here beyond that before I hit stop here?
No, I think that's it. No, just thank you for your time, for your audience. And if you get a chance, go check out Motherland. I'll be posting updates on my social media about where it's playing in the country. So if you're not in North Carolina and not checking out the virtual screening that exists right now, and you're in another part of the country, you'll see where we're showing up, because we're pretty much going to every state. So we'll keep the information flowing, and I hope to see some of your people there.
Yeah, that'd be great. We have listeners all over the country and all over the world, actually. So you never know. One might pop up. Nice. And that would be actually really awesome if they're like, hey, I heard about you on the Nerd Hat podcast, and here's your film.
Right?
That would be really cool, actually.
Yeah. Mission accomplished.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much, Evan. And good luck with the rest of your festival tour and the future of both this film and the other ones you're working on.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it, Richard.